Hi, I'm the Space Quest historian. So I just discovered something absurdly cool. You may have noticed if you're playing Under a Killing Moon or the Pandora Directive, the walking around can sometimes be a little cumbersome. You move with the mouse, as in moving the mouse forward makes text goes forward, and turning you have to turn the mouse left and right and such. It's a little non-intuitive to start with. And also, if you want to crouch or stand on your tippy toes, you have to use the keyboard and looking up and down. And also, the frame rate is all fucked up. So if you move close to a wall when the renderer doesn't have to render an entire room and you're just staring at a wall, then the frame rate just absolutely tilts forward. And conversely, if you're in a room where a lot of things are happening, the frame rate just sort of pulls back. So it's very inconsistent in that way. And when you're trying to round corners, you end up bumping into the wall and spinning text around like he's fucking on drugs or something. So someone named Moral Recordings actually made a patch that fixes all of this and introduces modern WASD movement and, strafing and all that, and it works so well. So I'm just recording this video as as you can tell, completely unscripted, and just because this needs to be seen. Anyone who plays Under a Killing Moon or Pandora Directive will need this in their life. It makes me want to go back and just replay the games, even though I just finished replaying the Pandora Directive twice for my Fair and Balanced video. So let me just run this through real quick. So you go to the GitHub page of Mortal Recordings, and they have a GitHub page, and it shows you the different keyboard controls. You just basically look around with the mouse, WASD to move, C to crouch, R to stand on your toes, and there's even a run, which is in the original games, but I think even the most seasoned Tex Murphy players might not even realize there is a run, because in the original games you had to hold down R while moving around, and that makes Tex run, even though, on a modern computer, running and walking at a normal speed is pretty interchangeable, really, but it does work. So what you need to do to install this patch, as you can see here, you need to download something called XDelta. I'm not a computer person, or I don't know, but there is a UI that you can download, and this makes it really easy to install the patch. So you just download this thing and put it somewhere, and then you go into the GitHub page here, and you just want to go into releases and not click the releases tab because there aren't any, but if you go into tags and just download the zip file from here, then you're pretty much good to go. Just unzip that anywhere. And the cool thing about this patch is it doesn't overwrite the game's original executable. It makes a separate executable. So you still have the original game with the original mouse look, if you want to call it that, mouse movement. And you can switch back and forth depending on how you feel. So let me just walk you through real quick how this works. I've unzipped the Tex mouse look patch. You get both Under a Killing Moon and Tex Murphy Pandora Directive in the same file. So you can patch both UAKM and Pandora with this. So you get these files here that are, I'm not entirely familiar with how they work, but all you have to do is launch XDelta UI, which takes a little while. Oh, it did a little while the first time I tried. Anyway, so first you want to open the patch file. Oh, it was in Under Killing Moon. Yeah, because I've been doing it with both games. Anyway, you want to go into Pandora. I unzipped it into Tex mouse look, and then nothing shows up. So you just want to go down here to all files, boop, and click the this one, the VCDIFF. Do that for this source file. You want to go back into your Pandora directory and click the file that's called Tex4. See, I made a backup copy of the original Tex4 before I realized that it doesn't overwrite the executable. And this Tex4ML is the executable it will eventually spit out. So if you just click Tex4, open that, and then in the output file you put in, let's just overwrite the one I've already got. There you go, Tex4ML. Yeah, we want it. And then you just click patch. And file patch successfully. Cool. Now this works with the GOG releases, and I think it even requires the GOG releases. So there you go. I think you could, if you have the original discs, you could just install that. I honestly don't know. There's a whole thing here about the checksums, the GOG checksums. So if they don't match, I assume the patch doesn't work. But I think most people who play Pandora and Killing Moon are doing it off the GOG downloads anyway. So there's not really anything to worry about there. Anyway, now we have the file patched. Now, if you have the GOG versions and you're not running this in your own DOSBox, which I suppose most people don't, they just go down here to launch TexMurphy and it opens up GOG's DOSBox configuration and it fixes all, mounting the ISOs and all that shit for you. So that's really the easiest way to do it. So what you want to do is you want to go into DOSBox text4 single.config, which is the file that tells the GOG launcher which version of the executable to run. It has all of this information here about what is going to run. So to start off with, it's going to try and run text4.exe. Now we obviously don't want that, so just copy this line and paste it down here and just change the name of the executable to whatever it was you named the patched executable. In my case, it was text4.ml. And then when you launch the game, boom, it opens up GOG's DOSBox config, which is fine. It's set to max cycles and all that. Let's just get kicking. I'll load a save game from when we're just pissing around inside Tex's office. He's got a VitPhone message. Fuck off. Alright, now we can explore in peace. So, going into movement mode, as you know, you press space to switch between interactive mode and movement mode. As you can see, I'm just looking around with the mouse. Standard mouse look. That's perfect. WASD, as you would expect. And Moral Recordings even fixed the frame rate issue, as I mentioned before. So if you walk up to a wall, the frame rate doesn't dip. I mean, it's a little stuttery, but I think that's a limitation of the engine, or at least a limitation of the fix that Moral Recordings did. It doesn't really impact all that much. I guess if you're sensitive to a bit of flicker, that's a little distracting, but honestly, I would much rather take this over the Speedy Gonzales movement of the original game. And obviously, if you want to crouch, you hold down C, and you can look around here. Now, while you're crouching, you can just press space to switch back to interact mode, and now Tex is permanently crouched. Now, one thing you could do in the original game was you could just sort of granularly crouch. So you could only crouch a little bit, or you could crouch all the way down to the floor. Obviously, that granularity is lost with movement mode, because now it's just a hotkey that goes and similarly pressing R raises you up on your tippy toes. Again, that was granularly done in the original, so you could just stand up a little bit and move down a little bit. You can't do that here, but you can also, and this is something, again, I don't think many TexMurphy players realize this, you can run. I'm holding down shift right now. Look at him zip around. And conversely, I'm going to let go of shift now, and that is normal movement speed. So that's pretty damn cool, I think. And this honestly makes me want to go back and replay the game all over again. And obviously this works if you're running the games in different resolutions as well, because the TexMurphy games allow you to pick from the config under preferences which window size you want to move around in. Now it defaults to full screen, which I always find a bit distracting, really. Obviously you can see more when you're running around, but when you go back to interact mode, it goes back into this little window here. So my preference when playing Under Killing Moon and Pandora Directive is actually to play it on option 4. And option 4 is the same size as the game window up here. So what you see is what you get. I really prefer that. So anyway, I've left links to Moral Recordings GitHub in the video description, and it's really easy to install. Now, if you want to patch out Under Killing Moon, there's one thing you need to remember, and that is Under Killing Moon, if you buy it from GOG, contains 2 executable files. It has one called text3 and one called text197. And text197 is the executable that GOG will try to launch. However, when you patch Under Killing Moon, what you want to do is you want to patch the text3 executable, because, well, that's just how it works. And when you then go into, let's just do it. Right, so here we have the executables. We're picking which executable to patch. You don't want to patch the text197.executable. You want to patch text3, and for some reason. And there we go. Now that's patched. So when you go into the DOSBox config from GOG, you want to either comment out or delete the text197.exe, and of course point the config to the patched executable you just made. So that's like a little tiny hurdle that you have to keep in mind. You don't want to patch the one that GOG actually tries to run. You don't want to patch text197.exe. You want to patch text3.exe. But then again, Under Killing Moon runs just as fine as the Pandora directive. Now, one thing I really hate about the Under Killing Moon release that you get from GOG is that it has this sort of weird interlaced look to it. I'm not entirely sure why. I usually just run Under Killing Moon in my standard DOSBox config because I mean, this looks weird. This gives me flashbacks to those rat bastard interlaced video FMV games, Black Dahlia, Gabriel Knight 2, stuff like that, which just makes me go fucking hell. And I haven't figured out how to turn this off in DOSBox config. I've tried to change the renderer. I've tried to change a bunch of shit. I don't know. I've tried changing output to OpenGL and stuff like that. It does nothing. But anyway, mouse look, it works. And it's just fantastic. So big up to Moral Recordings for making this. And I just want to make a quick video because this is just... Where the fuck was this when I was playing Pandora Directive? I played it through on Good Guy Path and Bad Guy Path. I was switching between the two as I was playing through it. And Pandora Directive is a very long game. And bumping into walls constantly was just... that's something that's always annoyed me, even though I love the games to death. And so now it's fixed, and that's pretty fucking awesome. So sorry for the sort of rambly, weirdy kind of off the cuff video about this, but anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you around the Chrono stream. Bye.